Hey everybody, welcome to The Dose. My name is Brian, and just want to talk to you about tonight about something that you already know. I'm going to tell you something you already know. Which, oh, by the way, is every daily dose, because, none of this stuff is new information. Isn't that true? All of the things we talk about in the Daily Dose are things that we've all known, but sometimes don't we have to have our minds refreshed? Sometimes don't we have to be reminded of things that we've already known? Or sometimes don't we kind of know things, but we know them, but we don't necessarily apply them in our lives until somebody points them out to us. And that's what the Daily Dose is. Really, there are no personal development lessons anywhere in the world that are original ideas. I mean, they're really not. The basic premise and the basic underlying, idea of, hey, be super likable, be nice to people, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is pretty much the main principle of success. I mean, that's pretty much it. But there's a few rules and a few guidelines that we as human beings like to apply to that in order to make things easier for us to both digest and apply in our businesses. And one of those rules is the 80-20 rule. Now, you're already familiar with the 80-20 rule, as I and everyone else. The 80-20 rule says that, and it actually is applicable in so many places, but I think the most common application of the 80-20 rule states that, 20% of the people in any organization are going to do 80% of the work, right? That's what we've always heard, is that 20% of the people in an organization are always going to do 80% of the work, and 80% of the people are going to do 20% of the work. What's interesting, though, about the 80-20 rule is that it doesn't stop there. It actually goes farther and explains a lot more. So if you're a business owner, if you own your own agency, if you are the leader of a network marketing organization, here's what you need to know. 20% of the people are not only going to do 80% of the work, but 20% of the people are going to be responsible for 80% of the production. And 80% of the folks are going to be responsible for 20% of the production. And 20% of the folks are going to make 80% of the money. And the other 20% of the money is going to be divvied up amongst 80% of the folks. And see, a lot of folks, when they get involved in sales or in business, they don't understand this. That folks go to work for a company and they don't understand, why is it that, these three guys over here get paid $200,000 a year and all of us are making 45. And the answer is because the top 20% make 80% of the money. And why is that? And this, by the way, goes across our entire society. In sales, in business, in corporate America, whatever it is you're doing, 20% of the folks are going to make 80% of the money. And why is that? Well, it's pretty simple. It's because those same 20% are doing 80% of the production. Those same 20% are doing 80% of the work. So what your goal should be, if you want to be successful in whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's health and wellness, spirituality, your relationships, your business, your finances, sales, coaching, mentoring, whatever it is you're trying to do, your whole goal should be to get into the 20%. Because if you can get into the 20%, you will be in with the money earners. In other words, you can make a living if you're in the 20%. You can survive if you're in the 80%. But you can make a real life for yourself if you're in the 20%. So your whole goal should be to get into the 20%. Now, obviously, by its very definition, the top 20% is not going to be average. Isn't that true? So if you're doing average work, you're not going to be the top 20%. If you're doing what the average person does, you're not going to be the top 20%. If you're putting in the hours that the average person puts in, you're not going to be the top 20%. The average person shows up 10 minutes late for work and bolts out the door. I mean, at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever the whistle blows, like, boop, they're like Fred Flintstone. Yabba-dabba-doo, right out the door in the parking lot. They back their cars in the morning, right? so when the 5 o'clock whistle blows, right, they don't even have to pull out, back out and turn. They just go. If you act, behave, walk, talk, think, and make decisions like the 80%, you're not going to be in the 20%. So your goal should be to get into the 20%. And if your goal is to get into the 20%, the question you must ask yourself is how? How do you get into the 20%? And the answer is to do more than what the average person does. To be exceptional, not average. So find out what the top 20% in your field or your endeavor or whatever it is you're aspiring to do. Find out what the top 20% do and then do what they do. This is not magic. This is not voodoo. This is not rocket appliance. All you must do is find out what the folks in the top 20% do and then do what they do. Work like they work. Have a work ethic like they have. Think like they think. Make decisions like they make. Find out what makes them tick. Find out why they make the kinds of decisions that they make. Find a mentor and mentor under that individual. You know what's interesting about the top 20%? The folks that are making 80% of the income in our entire world. You know what's interesting about these folks? They are more than happy to share with you how they got there, what they do, what their best practices are, all of those things. They're more than happy to share them. It's sometimes the folks in the 80% that have a scarcity mentality, feel like there's only so much to go around. They don't want to tell you what they know because you might take it. See, the top 20% understand that there's enough for all of us. Every one of us could have abundance like the top 20% has if we could all learn to apply ourselves the way the top 20% does. So your goal is to get into the top 20, and to get there, you need to do above average work, above average effort. Figure out what skills, what talents, what skills would you need to master to get into the top 20%? And once you've identified those 1 or 2 or 3 key skills, then you pour all your time and energy, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Don't sleep until you master those skills. And then you'll find yourself in the top 20%. This is the formula that wealthy people and successful people have used since the dawn of time, guys. So that's the new version of the 80-20 rule. Go out there this week, guys. You know what to do. Make it a great week.